I am excited to offer this opportunity for you to learn more about how to put together your application for graduate school. If you're thinking about that, or if you've already made a commitment, and the Graduate Student Center is always available to you to help you navigate that process and support you through your graduate education. All right, with that said, I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Denver Fowler, the Associate Dean of Graduate and Undergraduate Studies. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. So next up, we have our first presenter. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Katrina Gilmore.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you for having me. My name is Katrina Gilmore. I am the director at the Center for Career Education and Community Engagement Office. So one of the things that Dr. Jackson was talking about is that we do coordinate lots of the events on campus, including our graduate school fair. We have that once a year, but throughout the year, we'll be able to help students try to process and find out how to get into graduate programs, both here on campus and also off campus. So we have lots of services to help you find that information. So I'll be going through the details on how to find the right program for you. So one of the things we ask students to think about before they go into a graduate program is to make sure you ask yourself, what are my reasons why? Why would I want to go in a program? What are some of the things you hope to gain? Gaining specialized knowledge? Are you planning to go into a career change, which requires an advanced degree? There also may be a promotion or salary increase with getting advanced education, or maybe it's a lifelong personal goal to go into your actual grad program. But one of the big things is trying to figure out if this is the reason why you want to go into a program. So it's very important to think about your why. So some of the goals and expectations you should think about when you're going into a graduate program. What's your timeline? So how are you going to be defining where you want to be in the next 1, 3, 5 to 10 years from now? So thinking about your program, essentially, how much time do you have to actually go through a program? If you're in a career or work life, is there a time frame of where you want to be as far as a promotion or goal? So thinking about the timeline of the program as well. How long is the program going to take? Is there field work involved that you'll have to be gone away from a work setting, or do you have time to do those things? Also looking at the things that you value. It's important for you to look at your learning, living, and your graduate experience, and if that's going to fit into your work and life balance. I know lots of students here have families. They're working at the same time that they're going to school. And so they kind of you have to make some time in order to see if that's going to balance with you being in a graduate program. So those are some of the things that you want to look at. And how do you learn? What are some of the things that you do to process information in an academic and professional way? Now, for me, back in the olden days, I came to in-person classes. That was a much better experience for me. I like to be social. I like to gather and collaborate in groups. And I had to do a couple of online classes, and I struggled with that a bit. There was a disconnect with me doing things online. I was able to do well academically, but there was a level of, I didn't feel the engagement that I liked getting in an in-person classroom. So knowing how you process information, how you learn, how well you succeed in those settings could be something you want to think about when you're looking for programs that are going to be best for you. So one of the things too we want you to look at is actually, you want to know what your career goals are before picking your program. Most of your grad programs are going to be linked to a future career goal. So one of the sites that we have listed here, our first one is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So essentially on this particular handbook, this is a guide brought to you by the U.S. Bureau of Labor. They put together a list of occupations that you could be interested in. It's going to give you information about what the career consists of, what are some of the duties, roles, things that are available in that career. It's also going to tell you what kind of education is needed to go into that particular role. So they may say that you need a license, that you may need another degree. So this is a research platform where you can click into an occupation and then essentially do research on income, what the average income level will be, like I said, graduation level or education level needed. And also it's going to look at outcome, like your occupation outlook. So will this job be a growing job in the next 5 to 10 years? Is this job maybe settling or averaging out at a certain scale? Or is the job going out of style, essentially. So this is where you can look that information up to be sure that the program you're going into is on the track of where you want to be. So this is something very important for figuring out what you want to do. Now, most people, if they're going into a graduate program, may already know career-wise where they're going. But if you're struggling with figuring out your actual career, this could be something that you could take use of, and definitely want to come and use. If you come here as a student to CSUB, you can use services in the Career Center as well. This is also the next site. We have something called ONET. So these are for our students who are still maybe struggling with what they want their occupation to be. And it's a very quick assessment that you can take, usually 5 to 10 minutes. And it's going to ask you to go in and like or dislike, or maybe assess what type of job activities you're interested in doing. Most people can do this in a few minutes. This is really people who are struggling. If you've already kind of got your major together, you already know where you're going, maybe not as going to be as useful. But for people that are really exploring their career options, they can take this assessment. It's going to give you a list of occupations, and then it's going to give you exactly what that Outlook handbook gave you, but in more simple format. It's going to tell you what is required as far as skills, what are the duties of that position, also how much education is required for that particular role, which lets us know what graduate program will work, or if it's a license that you need for that particular process. So there are 2 different types of graduate programs types. So we have the professional programs, applied programs. So these go directly into a career that is applied. So you'll see medical school, law school, your master's of business administration, social work, school counseling. These are very much applied programs. The training and education that you're doing go directly into those fields. And then you have academic programs. These are going to be your research-oriented programs. You'll have some specific field of study. So I put some examples: sociology, psychology, history, English, etc. So a lot of these are developed, you develop tools needed for academia, going over to pursue a PhD. So those are the different types of programs that you can do for advancing your education. One of the things when you're looking for your specific program, you want to look at the academics. You want to look at the program and institutional fit. So if you're interested in doing research, when you're looking at the different programs available, you want to see what type of research opportunities they have, how the actual program is delivered to you. Is it online? Is it in person? Is it hybrid? And does that work with your schedule? Admission, what are the admission rates? What are they a pretty difficult school to get into? What's the average GPA? What is the accreditation or rigor if that's part of your requirements for going into a program? And also class size. And I'll show you where you can go online to find a lot of this information. But this is something you want to research before you go into particular programs if you're looking for something that fits your work and life balance. Also, we're looking at the culture of the campus that you're going into. That could be the population size, if you're looking at ethnicity makeup, or if they have, diversity and inclusion. You can look at some of the outcomes. Some campuses will put in, where their graduates go. Like after they graduate from here, what type of employment opportunities do they have access to? Living and learning, like essentially making sure that you have support services and community wherever you're deciding to do your studies. Professional development engagement. So you may want to check into what type of opportunities that career services or alumni services department actually offers to their alumni, to see if you're able to network and engage with people in the community that could also be doing the same type of work or industries that you're interested in participating in. That can be another research area that you can think about for going into a graduate program. So here's some sites on where you can look for different individual graduate programs. If you wanted to look at all the CSUB graduate programs, there is a Graduate Student Center link, but I went into this link that the Graduate Student Center offers, which lists out all the advanced programs or master's degree programs here at CSUB. If you wanted to see what the requirements are, prerequisites for those particular programs, this is the spot to come to get that information. It may tell you about the how to apply, the admissions process, like I said, prereqs. If there's recommendation letters that you need or forms, this is the site that you want to go to get that information specifically about CSUB-based master's programs. or advanced degrees. The next side is the CSU degree search. So if you're interested in going into any of the 23 campuses that we have here, there's a CSU search page. It's a link. But this is where you can look at the different programs across the CSU to see what type of offerings that they have at the different campuses. So on there to tell you what type of format that the degrees are going to be taught in. So if you're interested in online only, if you're interested in person only, or maybe hybrid, this particular search will give you that information. In this particular list, you'll also be able to click on the schools that you're interested in, and it's going to take you directly to the master's program page, where you'll get to get information about the faculty who are teaching the classes. You'll probably get some information on specific prereqs and what type of research that faculty are doing. So this is a great way to research all the different campuses within the CSU. There's also the UC search. So if you're going into or looking at going into a UC system, it has a very similar system as CSU, where you can break it down by what program you're interested in. It's going to give you requirements, prereqs. It's going to give you information of who the faculty and program coordinator is for the program. So lots of information on this page as well. Peterson's Guide. So this one we use for people that are interested in looking outside of the CSU, and it actually also does CSU, UC. Most of your campuses in the United States are in this graduate school search tool. Okay, so it's going to give you a list of campuses that have a similar program or the most relevant program on the side there. But you can then filter it down on what degree types there are, what location these organizations, or at the location where these campuses are. You'll be able to pick region of the country, school size, the setting. And then once you click on an actual organization, on this particular page, they usually will give you like the size of the campus. They'll give you information about what kind of degrees and awards they offer. Sometimes they'll give a data breakdown on the makeup of the particular program. Women, men, ethnicity groups. They will give you an admission process, like the rating. They kind of give you what the acceptance rate is as part of that process. Sometimes they'll add tuition and fees, what the percentage rate of the student body is. And then they'll give you a location and contact of how you get informed or get information about the program coordinator. So if you had questions as you're applying for those graduate schools, specifically in that particular area, that you can contact them and get direct information about what questions you have. Usually what I've done is copy and paste that information in location and contact, and then Google will spit out the program specifically, and you can get some more research on those particular programs. Some of the other assessments that you can look at for your graduate programs you want to go into, U.S. News and World Report rankings will rank campuses based on different things. CSUB has been on lots of the U.S. News and World Report rankings for best quality of education for, your money and pricing. So this is where you can find rankings of different schools if you wanted to look into more information about how the school ranks across the United States. One of the things, focus on faculty. As you're writing your personal statements and picking what programs to go into, you may want to see what interest areas that your faculty have their specialties in, especially if that's an interest area you're interested in going into. On the personal statements, you can essentially give some information about, your interest working with a particular faculty member or working in certain research areas. That'll show the program that you've done some research about that program as you're applying. So lots of it is available online. You just have to do some research. So if you want to identify some of the research areas that you're interested in and just see if there's any other faculty that are also interested in the specialty that you want to go into, it'd be something that you can mention in your personal statement. Okay, so final tips. And we want to make sure as you're doing your research, as you're looking at programs that you're interested in, we want you to stay organized, ask questions. Our staff at the CC office can help you research that information if you're looking into or not finding things that you want to find. Manage your time wisely. If there's a process where you have to request letters of recommendation, or if you have to get an eval from a former supervisor, current supervisor, a faculty member, you want to give them time to give you those recommendations. You also want to have time to fill out your application, personal statements, or if there's any type of other things you need, you want to allow time to get those things. If you can, try to avoid doing things at the last minute, just because we want you to meet those deadlines. As a reminder, we can help you if you wanted to get graduate school tips, if you wanted a career counselor to review your personal statement, your resume for going into a program to help with the application process. Our staff does that. We help you work through that. We can look through drafts, give you suggestions, answer some questions if you're doing research and need some help. So if you go into Handshake and then go into the appointment section, we have a grad school application or grad school resources section that you can essentially be able to reach out to a counselor, make an appointment, and we can help you through that process. So my information is listed on the screen here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Even as a alumni at CSUB, you'll be able to access our resources. So please reach out if you'd like.
Let's give Katrina a round of applause for her presentation. That was a lot of information, a lot of helpful information. So next up, we have our next presenters, Miss Carmen Padilla and Mr. Mario Ervin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Padilla.
And I'm Mario Ervin.
We're going to be presenting today about CalState Apply. So this is the application utilized for all CSUs. So all 23 campuses would be through CalState Apply. This is the direct link through calstateapply.edu/apply. Now, when we're looking into any of the programs, so there's only one application for when you're wanting to apply to any of the 23 campuses. Again, like I mentioned, there's only one application and you can only submit one application per campus. Our graduate programs do have different deadlines. Those are one of the things you want to pay close attention to. The campus deadline varies, plus the program you're interested in also will vary. And for our campus, we are open for spring 2024 and fall 2024. When you're applying, if you're interested in applying for spring 2024, the term will be on the left-hand side. So you want to make sure that you're paying close attention to which term you're applying to. For spring 2024, most of our deadlines are going to close 2023. If you're interested in fall 2024, the application will close next year. Most of them will close around June 2024. So if you see where on the left-hand side where it says fall 2024, winter 2025, this is the new application that just opened October 1st. So you want to make sure you're paying close attention and don't apply to the wrong term. So this is one of the first things we want you to make sure you're paying attention to when selecting which term you're wanting to attend. Now, when you're ready to apply to CalState Apply, you're able to select a degree goal you're interested. So are you wanting to do a master's, a teaching credential, a doctoral, or a second bachelor's? You're able to select that option. It's one of the first things that will come up. If you're seeking, you're going to select seeking a second bachelor's and beyond. Once you select that, then you can specify if you're going to do the credential, the master's, the doctoral, or a second bachelor's. If you select you're wanting to do a graduate program, you will only see graduate program. You will not see any credentials. So the application does change based on the responses you start to select. If you decide to select graduate and credential, you'll see both. Bakersfield is at the top. It goes alphabetically. You'll be able to see all the other 23 campuses that can have graduate programs available. But if you're wanting to see also credentials, you may have to go back to make sure what selection you made.
When adding a program, make sure to, as Carmen said earlier, select the correct program. On this example here at the bottom left, I know it's a little hard to see, but there's a green check mark to show that we've selected that program. Just make sure that you do select the correct program because it's one application per campus. So you want to make sure you're selecting the right program. And if you are looking to take it online or in person, it will verify on the right-hand side. So for business administration, it does show that main campus, which is implying that it will be in person, and then online being that it would be a fully online program. And then just verify the term as well. Sometimes spring and fall will overlap. Above here, you can see that fall 2024 is selected. And so just verify that that's the term that you're picking and Lastly, just view the program deadline. That's super important. If you're not too sure yet, I would just make sure you write like just a note with the deadline and put it on your door so you can be aware of when that deadline is, so you can make sure you submit it. Because for some programs, once the deadline closes, it closes. You don't want to have to wait a whole term after that. When you're filling out your application, you'll see these 4 quadrants. It might look a little familiar for people that have applied for their bachelor's program through CalState Apply. In quadrant 1, you'll see your personal information. So just like your generic personal information page that you've seen before, you'll be asked, all the questions would be required, but some of the questions are optional in the personal information section. In quadrant 2, the academic history, this is where you'll go ahead and put all of the colleges you've attended prior. Make sure that you do include all of that. And just a note, when you are applying to these programs and you're submitting your transcripts, they will need all of your transcripts from all of your colleges that you've attended. So if you took one class at Saracoso over the summer, they're going to need that transcript too, even if it shows up on your BC transcript or your Taft transcript. So just make sure that you're submitting that not only in the program, but to the university as well. And then standardized tests. So you want to make sure that you're checking the program website for whichever program you're applying to and ensuring that you have all of those tests that are required for it submitted and included in there as well. And then your GPA will need to be added into the academic history, and all credits will need to be inputted as well. And then lastly, our supporting information, internships, research, anything like that, you would want to put in the experiences category and supporting information.
So the first 3 quadrants are standard for all CSU campuses. We can't change those. It's a requirement that will be needed to be submitted for all of them. Now, quadrant 4 is specific to the program you're interested. If you select counseling psychology, what the next thing you'll see is the counseling psychology description about the program. You'll also be able to see the questions they may have specific to the program, documents required, and letters of recommendation required. The quadrant 4 is customizable by any of the programs that are wanting to gather this information right at the beginning of the application. The deadline for the program is the deadline for CalState Apply, and it's the deadline for your materials to be submitted. So the deadline for counseling psychology is in February. If the recommendation comes a day after, a week after, many of our programs will not count that as a complete file, and you can not be reviewed for admissions. So when we're looking at quadrant 4, counseling psychology for our institution, gives a bit description about what the program is on the home tab. On the questions tab, they do ask some questions specifically pertaining to what they want to know about you. What's any prerequisites that you may completed, your overall GPA in the last 60 semester, 90 quarter. You also have to verify that you're aware that official transcripts are required from any institution you have attended. If you receive your degree from here, you don't have to submit it from CSUB, but if you are coming from Fresno, Northridge, any of the other CSUs or UCs, we do require an official transcript. When we're looking at the documents tab, you'll see that there are required documents that you'll have to submit. Personal statements, letters of recommendation, resume. If it's required, your application cannot be submitted until that document is uploaded into CalState Apply. If it's optional, it'll give you instructions. Can you mail it to the department? Can you email it to the director? So you want to make sure that this piece for the program you're interested in is you're reading along what the department is requiring from you as a student. The recommendation part, we do have a lot of students who will put the recommenders, but don't notify the recommender that they're going to be requesting the letter. Please speak with your faculty, professors, anybody that's going to give you the recommendation, and giving them a time frame of, hey, this program's asking for a letter of recommendation. This is a deadline that you as a student can actually change. So we don't have the ability to force the February deadline. So when you do put the recommender, follow up and say, has the letter been submitted? Many times our recommendations don't get submitted. Your application cannot be loaded. So the student is actually waiting to be reviewed by a program, but it's not complete because one of the 3 recommendations was never submitted. So please make sure you're following up with your recommenders. Give them a time frame. If the department has specific things they want your recommender to review, like your academic abilities, your characteristics, anything that they would need to know to make a decision, make sure you let them know. You are able to provide a little comment on there. And once you submit this, you put out 3 recommenders. Your recommender will get a separate email from Liaison, which is the company that we work with. And it'll tell them you have been asked for a recommendation. So once you submit it online, I don't believe you get notified, but our campus has the ability to go in and bring it down into your file and then can be viewed by the department director. The CalState Apply application requires you to complete all 3 quadrants. And for the program specifically is quadrant 4. So whenever you do call or whenever you talk to a program, many times they'll refer to quadrant 4. Quadrant 1 has 7 tiles. You want to make sure all of that is checked off and complete, and it'll be green. So if all of these areas are completed, it'll allow you to go in, and when you're ready, submit application tab, you'll be able to go in and pay. Our graduate application unfortunately does not have a fee waiver. It is a $70 non-refundable fee. So you do have to pay for the application to be submitted. Now, this is an application for all 23 campuses. So you can apply to 4 campuses at one time. But you want to make sure that green completion rate that's showing you there is all the way completed, because if you have Fresno, Northridge, and Bakersfield, and you only completed Bakersfield, then you click submit all, or you think you're done, it's only going to submit it for Bakersfield and the others will stay in your cart per se. If you think you paid for it, you're like, I know I submitted my credit card information. It does happen. There is a way for you to view your payment history on the top right. If you see the example, right next to your name, you're going to have a little drop down that shows you payment history. Many times when you contact the campus, they'll ask you, can you provide verification that you've paid? Can you give confirmation? You should receive an email, but if you don't, this is the place where you'll be able to provide that screenshot for us. And the other last thing that I wanted to let you know is when you check your status, you can download your application and view what you've completed. So you can verify your biographical information, your academic history, the experiences, everything you've done before you fully submit it without having to go and click on the different tiles of each quadrant. And the last thing, which is very important, where your name is on the top right-hand side, right below it, you have a CAS ID. If you already applied to CSUB before, to complete your bachelor's, you should have the same CAS ID and it stays with you forever. And whenever you call a campus, let's say you forgot your ID for some reason, you stopped attending, you come back, the CAS ID will stay with you and we can look you up that way. Once you submit your application, many of the campuses should also be notifying you saying, thank you for applying and give you a status update. For our CSUB campus, you receive an acknowledgement within 2 to 3 days, thanking you for applying and providing you what the next steps would be. Now, you can also visit the Office of Graduate Admissions for a campus and view the university requirements as well as different links to the program that you're interested in. It gives you the steps on what happens once you apply, once you've been admitted. And here are some additional resources. When you're applying, there is a graduate admission guide that you can use that in details gives you more information about any of the tiles or questions you might have. And also a help center in case you forget your password or you do log in, but you're actually using the wrong link and see that a program's closed. So they're able to help you. This is a center that's located in Boston, so they are a few hours ahead of us, just in case, depending on the time you call. But any other questions that you may have, you are able to contact our office, Graduate Admissions. This is our contact number and email address. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Carmen and Mario.
Hi, I just want some further clarification on the transcripts, if that's okay. Let's say I'm a transfer student and I've attended community college. Do I submit those too, or do I just leave them out?
If we have those transcripts now while you're completing your CSUB degree here, no. If you were attending and didn't submit the updated information, we will request them.
Hello, I was wondering, do we have to have 3 recommendations from 3 different professors, like towards a graduate program?
It depends on the program. So we do have a couple of programs that require 3, some don't require any at all, but it does have to be 3 different ones. Some require it to be academically and some require it to be professional. So the quadrant 4 will tell you specifically what the department is looking for.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Stephanie Perez, and she's going to present from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships.
Hi, guys. Again, yes, I am Stephanie Perez. I'm a counselor at the Financial Aid Office. I am the Middle Class Scholarship Coordinator, Chafee Grant Coordinator, Financial Aid Counselor. We all have letter groups there. So that is kind of what I am responsible for there. But today we're just going to talk about financing graduate school and that there are options for you. And we'll kind of get into different things to kind of look out for and what that looks like for you guys. In the presentation, we're going to go over application and testing fees because you guys definitely want to be aware of that. Some programs require that you take tests before you enter the graduate program. So you want to be aware of what those costs are, and you want to have the money to be able to pay for those tests if that's applicable to your program. Also, the application fees for applying to these universities or places where you want to go, it costs money. And if you're going to apply to 10 or so universities, you definitely want to take that into consideration. And then we'll go over kind of published costs, out-of-pocket costs, and then we'll also go over financial tools and then like the financial aid process. I've only ever worked at CSUB, but I have general knowledge of other universities, but we'll go a little bit more in depth about CSUB graduate programs. Let's get into it. Application fees. Every school has an application, and it ranges from no fee, which is very rare. It really depends on your school. You know, if you're going to schools that cost more as far as their cost of attendance, usually their applications are also more expensive. But most tend to be within under $100, just depending on where you're applying to. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you have to apply to 10 schools and they're all $85, that's a big chunk of change that you're going to come out of pocket with if they don't have waivers and things like that. So keep that in mind when you are planning on applying to schools, that you have money set aside to be able to pay those costs if you need to. Also, testing fees. The GRE right now is $220. GMAT is $275 in person, and it's more if it's administered online. And then the LSAT went up a little bit recently, and it's at $222. So those are also, you want to keep that in mind. You always want to contact the schools and see if they do have waivers. I know the GRE sometimes has like a waiver. You have to submit financial documents and things like that to them. Not necessarily a waiver, but they do have, I believe, like a fee reduction for that. So there are things that you can do to help mitigate the cost for some of these. So always contact the school you're applying to, or talk to, like, a lot of times on the websites, they have financial assistance for the tests if you're looking for that. So be aware of that, and always estimate your costs, budget ahead. That's always really important. Like we always say that in financial aid, because especially even just normal financial aid, when we disperse aid, you've got to kind of manage that money and be prepared to spread that throughout the semester. Same thing kind of goes for graduate school and applying for graduate school. You definitely want to make sure that you are managing what it's going to cost you even to just apply, take the test, and do all that, so you're ready to do that when the time comes. So published costs versus actual out-of-pocket costs. Now, even here at CSUB, it's hard to understand. You always want to look at what your actual out-of-pocket cost is, because, and I'll kind of go to the next slide so I can help break this down a little bit. Your estimated budget for like a California resident student in a graduate program. So it's saying if you live off campus, your room and board is going to be $17,000 or $1,700 for transportation, all of those costs. That's not necessarily actual costs. That's not necessarily actually what you're going to pay. These are averages that campuses do. We have a committee that meets of students, staff, and I think we have faculty also on it, where every year we kind of collect data and we get an average of what cost of living is in the area and things like that. And we come up with these general budgets for students living with parent on campus or off campus. If you found a really great room to rent, it might not cost you $17,000 for the year in graduate school if you lived off campus. Things like that to keep in mind, whereas that gets into like, what's the actual cost? No, whereas like tuition and fees for us, that is pretty much what you're going to pay, with the exception of like your class had like a course fee or something like that. It might vary a little bit, but more or less that's your actual out of pocket costs. A lot of the other things like cost of attendance are just estimates of what it is going to cost you, but not necessarily what you will pay once you get to the university. So that's always good to keep in mind. It's always nice to do your research. Every major, every degree you want to get varies. We have an example here for business administration. If you have only a bachelor's degree, your average income is $57,000 at a starting level position. Whereas if you have a master's degree, it's $84,000. So that's a huge difference. That's $27,000 difference based off of just having that degree. Whereas computer science, it's $68,000 starting out and then $82,000, only really a $14,000 difference. So those are things to keep in mind, like outweighing the pros and cons of if graduate school is right for you and the career that you want to take. If it's, especially something where it might significantly help your income or moving up in an organization, you definitely want to consider that and consider that for graduate school. Applying for financial aid at graduate school, you're either going to complete a FAFSA or a DREAM Act application, depending on your citizenship status, or if you are an eligible non-citizen, or if you are one of our undocumented students. So that will determine what application you guys do. Many of you guys are undergrads here. You probably already complete one of these applications for us to receive aid as an undergrad. You will also do the same thing for graduate school. That's also how we determine financial aid in graduate school. Applications normally open October 1st. This year is a little bit different. I don't know if any of you guys have tried to log on and complete your FAFSA or DREAM Act application. You're not able to do that yet. Reason being, the 24-25 application is delayed due to FAFSA simplification. It's a federal law that has passed, and they are now making it better. It'll be a new ride and adventure for all of us. We'll all be learning it together because it's new for us as well as administrators. We are learning it also. We have a little bit of inside knowledge, but we've yet to even see a demo of the new FAFSA and things like that. So it'll be an adventure that we will all be on together. Moving forward after this year, it will open October 1st, and priority deadline is always March 2nd for California. This year, the priority deadline will be moved to April 2nd because of the delay in the application. So be aware of that. You do have a little bit of extra time for this next academic year that you're applying for. And we are being told that it will open by law, it has to open by the end of the year. Another thing to note is March 2nd is California's deadline for financial aid. If you are planning to go to an institution out of state and not in California, in another state, you want to check what their priority deadline is, because every state has a different priority deadline. That is just what we use here in California. So be aware of that. On the actual FAFSA, where you fill out the FAFSA application, studentaid.gov, they actually have a list of all the states and what their priority deadlines are. So you can check that out there. So if you are wanting to go to a school in New York or something like that, you can make sure you hit deadlines for the school that you're wanting to attend. Unfortunately, in graduate programs, there's not as much aid as there is when you're an undergrad, because you will no longer be eligible for Pell Grant, Cal Grant, things like that. If you are interested in a credential, might be able to keep Cal Grant depending on when the last time you received it and things like that. But pretty much most graduate programs, you're limited, at least at CSUB, in the type of aid that you can receive. You have grant funds, you have loans, you have federal private loans, and then assistantships, work study funds are also an option. And then also fellowships. I know here at CSUB, we have quite a bit of fellowships, grant funds for graduate programs. A huge one that we administer is CalSWEC. That is for the Master's in Social Work program. They have a huge grant fund that they award to students. There are lots of different programs here at CSUB to help you fund that, because you are missing out on some of the aid like Pell Grant and things like that in the graduate program. So that's something to always be aware of. Also, scholarships. Scholarships are huge. I feel like students don't utilize those as much. We have here at CSUB, we have Runner Scholarship Universe, and that is our scholarship application. It opens at the beginning of the year, and you answer just a couple quick questions about major and things like that. And then it'll match you with any kind of scholarships that pertain to you and that you might be eligible to apply for. So I always tell students, please utilize that. Also, if you're going to another university, please contact them. They might have a different scholarship application for their school, and you want to make sure that you're contacting them and you're completing the right one. Also ask about deadlines. You want to make sure we have the same deadline as the California application, which is March 2nd. Another school might have a different deadline. So you definitely want to make sure you're contacting them, not only what resources they have at that school, but what the deadlines are and when you need to submit these things. Because there is a lot of free scholarship money out there. And it's just putting in a little bit of work, maybe to write statements and things to make sure that you can get the best options for you, because the less loans you guys can borrow, the better. Also, when filling out your scholarship applications, I always tell students, be honest, be authentic, be yourself, right? There's no one like you. So tell your story, whatever they're asking for, make sure you're really conveying who you are and telling why this scholarship will help you achieve your goals and things like that. I know sometimes they have other questions, but it really is about being as honest and authentic as you can be, because you're you and no one else has your story and the things you want. So you definitely want to make sure you consider that when you're writing statements and things for scholarships. So here's types of aid at CSUB. I broke it down. I tried to kind of separate off our different like federal programs and then our state programs for graduate and credential students. For graduates, you are only eligible for an unsubsidized loan as far as loan funds are concerned, and federal aid. Federal aid is limited. There is a little bit more funding for grant funds through the state, and we do have some, but through the actual FAFSA application and federal aid, you're really limited to the unsubsidized loan. Now, if you are in a credential program, you can still qualify for a subsidized loan, whereas in a graduate program, you cannot. There's a little kind of caveat though with credential students. If you are in a credential program and you don't meet one of the qualifying factors to be independent, and you will still then in a credential program, because it's considered like a 5th year program, still be considered dependent if you don't meet one of the other qualifications to make you independent. With that, you lose eligibility for an unsubsidized loan. So a lot of students received an unsubsidized loan as an undergraduate and then move into the credential. They're still dependent and then they lose that unsubsidized eligibility. So it's kind of nice to know that going in, what you're eligible for and things that you can receive depending on what programs you do. Pell Grant is also very limited now in the credential program. California used to kind of have a little pass with the federal government, and we were allowed to administer Pell Grant to a larger population of students. That has changed because we have so much other funding through the state that helps credential students. So now very few students are eligible for Pell Grant in the credential program. But there is the federal Teach Grant program. You have to meet certain qualifications. You have to have like an agreement to serve and things like that. If you don't meet those qualifications, it does turn into a loan, but it is a grant if you meet all of like the follow-up criteria in your agreement to serve and different things that they require. And then federal work study, also fellowships. So we have the Graduate Equity Fellowship, and CSUB awards typically range from $500 to $3,000. It just depends on the program and what their award amount is. And again, that varies significantly just depending. So now state aid that you guys can apply for in the graduate program. So in an actual graduate program, students can get up to $7,176. What that is the state tuition here at CSU or here at the CSU for graduate students. And then for credentials, $6,666. Again, that is the state fees. State university grant, if you are eligible, will pay the state fees, but what is left for students to pay then is the university fees. So that's why you see at different CSUs, the cost can vary so significantly. Even though every CSU is going to charge that same rate, their university fees are going to be very different depending on the campus you go to. So CSUB, we pride ourselves on being one of the most affordable campuses. So your university fees are going to be significantly less than if, say, you went to, San Francisco. You're going to pay a lot more there in university fees. And that's what's going to hike up that tuition, is what the university is charging you for the services they offer there. And then there is also the MBA grant, and those are for the students who are in the MBA program who pay that additional fee. So not only do they pay their regular tuition and fee, they pay an additional charge per unit for certain courses in the MBA program here at CSUB. So we do have a grant to help offset that additional cost. Credential students, there's actually a lot of funding through the state for programs like Golden State Teach Grant and Middle Class Scholarship. Golden State Teach Grant, it's a huge grant. It can be $20,000 for the year you can receive to help you finish your credential. You have to be fully admitted into the credential program. You cannot receive it if you're conditionally admitted. Same thing with middle class scholarship, but it can help go pay towards tuition. It's a very large grant, and it, like the Teach Grant, does have restrictions on it where you do have to do the agreement to serve and things like that, and you have to meet the qualifications. You have to serve in certain areas. We don't handle the kind of the back end and the repayment part, but that too turns into, it's not a loan. How they do it is they'll request a fourth of the funds every year for 4 years, or it's kind of, they have a kind of a crazy repayment if you don't meet the qualifications. But grants like this are being put in place because we need teachers in California, and we need good teachers. So California is trying to initiate funding to help pay for the program and really get students to pursue their teaching credentials and get all of that going. Now, I also like to talk about funding for our DREAM Act students because it is a little bit different. DREAM Act students are not eligible for any federal aid. They are only eligible for state aid. So that's going to be State University Grant, Golden State Teacher Grant, Middle Class Scholarship, and then also the DREAM Loan is available to DREAM Act students. The DREAM Loan is a limited fund loan, so not every student would qualify who potentially wants it, depending on funding we have at the university. We usually are able to get loan to students who need it to help pay tuition and things like that. So we've been really fortunate because not everyone wants the DREAM Loan, so that's been nice, but it is a little bit different than like a federal loan if you are a DREAM Act student. Types of aid, just kind of other places. Grants will definitely vary by state. Each state might have their own grant, also might vary by institution. An institution might have fellowships, grants, things that they administer from their endowment and things that can help pay tuition. So all of that really varies. So if you are attending somewhere not CSUB, you definitely want to contact them. You want to inquire as to what resources they have available to you. And then for us at CSUB, you can search in the CSUB, the scholarship universe, the runner scholarship universe is what it's called. You can actually search external scholarships as well, not just CSUB scholarships. So you can search other scholarships outside of ones that are administered by just us here at CSUB. And again, always contact the institution you're applying to because they might have additional scholarships that you can apply to if it's not with us. And then also scholarships, fellowships, assistantships, all of that varies by school. So you definitely want to contact the schools directly. Again, I know I keep repeating that. It's hard because there's so many different programs that schools have, and we just can't keep a running list of every school and every program. So it's really hard to give some specifics about another school just because it can vary so significantly. Receiving aid as a CSUB graduate student. If any of you guys are receiving aid now as an undergrad, first thing is completing the FAFSA DREAM Act application. That's the first thing we want to do. And also submit all required documents. During COVID, we kind of had the federal government and the California Student Aid Commission as well had a waiver, and we weren't really selecting students for verification. That's not the case any longer. We're back in the full swing of verifying students, requesting documents. If you apply to an institution, you definitely want to follow up and see if, hey, do I need to turn in tax documents? Do I need to turn in things? So that way we can determine your eligibility for financial aid. Also, for admissions, need to be admitted to the campus or at least conditionally admitted. Now, for us, like for credential program and things like that, the conditionally admitted credential students, your aid eligibility will vary significantly than when you're fully admitted. So that's something to also keep in mind. And if you are applying, if you're conditionally admitted, the funding might be a little bit different than when you're fully admitted. Also for us, if you're a graduate student, you have to be in it. Part-time for us is 3 units, and the credential student is similar to undergrad, and you have to be in 6 units. So you have to be enrolled. I know that we have this every year with students is you do have to be enrolled at least part-time to receive almost all financial aid with us at CSUB, and pretty much most institutions is the same thing. And then also you must meet satisfactory academic progress. You have to maintain a 3.0 GPA in a graduate program and also a credential program, and you have to pass at least 67% of all of your classes. So that's something to keep in mind when you are doing your programs. There are similar requirements and things that we are going to request of you to meet grades and things like that in the programs. We have the Bank Mobile, and that is how you actually receive any additional financial aid. What will happen for us is we pay your fees and tuition first, and then anything left over is refunded to you. So you definitely want to set up your direct deposit. You don't have to do that, but the funds get to you so much more quickly, and then you're able to utilize those for books or supplies that you need in your program. So for us at CSUB, that's actually done through your My CSUB student portal, and you can set up, you can either receive, Bank Mobile has, like, you can get a checking account through them, or you can set up your own personal checking account and money can be direct deposited into your account there. You guys have any questions for me?
So I hear them a lot. Subsidized, unsubsidized. What's the exact difference?
So the subsidized loan is just that the federal government is subsidizing your interest while you're in school, at least part-time. Whereas the unsubsidized loan, you are collecting interest. It begins collecting interest as soon as you take it out. Now, the biggest difference is the subsidized loan is a need-based loan. So not all students will qualify for a subsidized loan, whereas all students, if you haven't used your max loan eligibility or you're not like in loan default, all students will qualify for at least an unsubsidized loan. So that's the biggest difference between the two. Interest rates, though, are the same. It's that subsidizing the actual interest collected on the loan. And there are ways to mitigate that. If you do need the unsubsidized loan, you can pay the interest monthly while you're in school to help bring down that cost of the interest that you're accruing on the unsubsidized. So there are things to kind of help make it a little bit more affordable.
Just real quick, I just want to thank Deborah, Katrina, Carmen, Mario, Stephanie for their presentations. I also want to thank Scott and Thomas for running all the things techie for the meeting. And last but not least, our graduate studies team. Thank you.